All right, let's dive into something that's at the absolute heart of almost every business: material cost. But look, we're not just going to go through a bunch of definitions today. Instead, we're going to tell a story. We're going to follow the entire life of a single material, from the moment it's just an idea on paper, all the way until it becomes part of a product you can hold. So, let's start that journey.
Have you ever stopped to think about this? Seriously, how does a massive car factory have the exact screw it needs right when the assembly line is ready for it? Or on a smaller scale, how does your favorite local coffee shop never seem to run out of oat milk? It honestly feels a bit like magic, right? But it's not magic. It's a system, a really, really smart system. And it's what keeps businesses, big and small, from grinding to a halt. And that's really what it all boils down to. It's about mastering the entire journey of their materials. For that coffee shop, it means knowing precisely when to order more beans, exactly how many bags to keep in the storeroom, and accounting for every single scoop they use. They have absolutely perfected the life cycle of their supplies. So, here's our roadmap for this journey. We're going to follow the 6 key stages in a material's life. First, we'll understand why materials matter so much. Then, how a company gets them, how they're stored and tracked, and the delicate balance of keeping just the right amount. After that, we'll see how they're actually used, and finally, what happens with any leftover waste or loss. And this right here is our map. This flowchart shows the whole path we're going to take. As you can see, it all kicks off on the left with getting the goods. That's procurement. Then it moves through storage, controlling the inventory, figuring out its value, and finally, it ends with being used up. Every single box you see here is a critical stop on our tour today. So let's start at the very beginning. Before we get into all the how-tos, we really need to understand the why. I mean, why do giant companies spend so much time and money managing something as simple as a screw or a coffee bean? And what's wild is just how interconnected all these points are. Think about it. If you cheap out on materials, your product's quality tanks. If you overpay for them, you have to raise your prices. Now, what happens if you run out of a key ingredient? Your entire production line could just stop. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act where one wrong move has huge ripple effects. Okay, so a company knows it needs materials. How do they actually go about getting them? Well, it's not like just running down to the corner store. It's a very formal, documented process called procurement. You should think of this whole process as a conversation that happens on paper. It all starts when the production team looks at their master recipe. That's the bill of materials. It lists every single part they need. When they see they're running low on something, they send an internal memo, the purchase requisition, to the buying department, basically saying, hey, we're going to need more of these. That department then sends a formal purchase order out to the supplier. And finally, when the delivery truck shows up, the storekeeper signs off on a goods receive note, which just confirms, yep, we got what we ordered. Every document is a vital checkpoint. The materials have arrived, awesome, but you can't just leave pallets sitting on the loading dock. They need a safe home, which is the storeroom. And even more importantly, you have to keep track of every single item. Okay, now this is a really important distinction. The bin card is basically the storekeeper's on-the-ground record. It's a simple card, often literally attached to the bin, that just tracks the count. 5 came in, 3 went out, so there are 2 left. The store's ledger, on the other hand, is the accounting department's official record. It tracks not just how many items you have, but also what they're worth. They both track the same stuff, but one answers the question, what's on the shelf, and the other answers, what do our books say we have? All right, so we know how to buy stuff and we know how to store it, but that leads us to the biggest strategic puzzle of all. How much should you actually keep on hand at any one time? This is the central challenge of inventory control. And here is the classic dilemma. On the one hand, if you place a lot of small, frequent orders to save on storage space, your ordering costs, all the paperwork and shipping fees, are gonna go through the roof. But on the other hand, if you place one gigantic order for the year to keep those ordering costs down, well, now your holding costs, like warehouse rent, insurance, and the risk of things spoiling, they just skyrocket. So what on earth do you do? Well, you find the just right amount. That's where the economic order quantity, or EOQ, comes in. It's this elegant mathematical answer to the problem we just talked about. It's basically the magic number that finds that perfect sweet spot where the total cost of ordering and holding is at its absolute lowest. It tells you the most efficient amount to order every single time. And to manage all of this, day to day, businesses set levels that work just like the fuel gauge in your car. The reorder level is your low fuel light. The second you hit it, you know it's time to place another order. The maximum level is the full tank line. You never want to go over that and have stuff spilling out. And the danger level? That's when you are literally running on fumes. You hit that, and it's an all-hands-on-deck emergency to get more stock in before production stops. So now, the materials are ready for their moment. They move out of the storeroom and onto the factory floor to become part of the final product. But this is where things get a little weird, because it brings up a surprisingly tricky question about cost. So really think about this for a second. Let's say you have a big bin of coffee beans. Some of them you bought last week for $10 a kilo, and the ones you bought yesterday cost $12 a kilo. They're all mixed together. When you go to make a coffee, what cost do you use for the beans in that cup? Is it $10? Is it $12? Your answer actually has a huge impact on your financial reports. So, accountants came up with a couple of simple assumptions to handle this. FIFO, or first in, first out, assumes you use the oldest beans first. Like how a grocery store pushes the oldest milk to the front of the shelf. LIFO, or last in, first out, assumes you use the newest beans first, like taking from the top of a pile of newspapers. Now, why does any of this matter? Well, when prices are going up, FIFO gives you a higher profit on paper, which also means a bigger tax bill. LIFO does the exact opposite. So the choice between them is a really big strategic decision. We're now at the final stop on our materials journey. But what about the stuff that doesn't quite make it into the final product? The spills, the scraps, the little bit that evaporates. What happens to that? A key idea here is that accountants split these losses into two buckets. Normal loss is the stuff you expect, the unavoidable bits, like a little bit of a liquid evaporating. The cost of that is just absorbed by all the good units you made. But abnormal loss, that's the unexpected, avoidable stuff, like someone accidentally spilling a whole barrel. That's a huge red flag. Its cost isn't hidden in the product, it's reported separately to shine a big spotlight on a problem that needs to be fixed. And this really brings us full circle. Every document, every calculation, every single technique we've talked about today, it all serves this one single goal. It's all about building a system that's so smooth, so reliable, that the right material is always in the right place at the right time, letting production just hum along like a well-oiled machine. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought. Now that you've seen how all of these pieces fit together, from that first purchase order all the way down to accounting for a tiny bit of scrap, where do you think a business can make the biggest impact? Is it negotiating a better price up front? Is it perfecting how much they store? Or is it all about preventing waste on the factory floor? The real answer is, it's all connected. Thanks for joining me on this journey.